Today on the channel, we're talking about Kamado grills. I'm sharing with you my 8 tips to be legendary on your Kamado grill. What's up, barbecue fans? Welcome back to Patio. My name's Jake. You're watching Roman Cook. Today on the channel, we're talking all about Kamado grills. I've got my Kamado out. However, doesn't matter if you've got a Big Green Egg, a Kamado Joe, or some other brand, most of these tips are going to apply to you. There's going to be some little nuances, and I'll point out the differences as we get through this video. But we're going to go over 8 tips, things that you need to know to make sure that you get the most out of your Kamado grill. Now, when you were deciding on getting a Kamado style grill, you probably learned you can bake, you can grill, and you can make some amazing pizza. However, you probably picked up one because you wanted to start smoking some food. Now, the thing you need to learn about smoking and smoking wood in general is that first, we've got whatever we're cooking. We're putting our salt, our pepper, our garlic, our rub, whatever we're using, that's seasoning. You've got to look at your wood like seasoning as well. Very important step, because the one thing about smoking food is that if you overdo it, no one's gonna like it and you're gonna throw that out. So learn your woods is tip number 1. There's a whole bunch of different varieties. Now I've got with me here, this is cutting edge firewood boxes, the Kamado, and if we look at these guys, we've got some different flavors. Now, I've been using cutting edge firewood for about 3 years now, and the thing I like about them is we've got some monster chunks. High quality wood. And the thing to know about wood is that it all has a different level of smokiness and a different flavor. Now, I don't have any apple here. Apple's very common. It is very light, give you a little bit of a background flavor. But I do have some cherry. I've got some oak, hickory, and pecan. Usually what I use is somewhere in there. I also have the Kamado coffee wood, which is unique to Kamado. You can buy it on their website, and it has a very interesting flavor. It's amazing on beef, and even chicken wings put some great flavor on there. So if you want to try something unique, check that out. I've been using that for a while. It is quite good. But typically, you know, when we look at smoke, we talk about what the intensity of that flavor is like. So we go pecan is the lightest, then we go to oak, then we go to hickory, then we go to mesquite. Mesquite is very, very powerful. Depending what you're cooking and how long it's going to be in the smoke for, you want to look at what your flavor profile is going to look like. Now, I encourage you to try all flavors, right? I didn't mention cherry. Cherry is over here. It puts a sweet flavor on, but it also puts a lot of red color onto your meat. So be aware of that. Usually a little bit goes a long way. Typically what I'll do is I like to mix in a little cherry with something else so I get some of that color and I get some of that sweetness, but I like an oak or a pecan to be the dominant flavor. But this is seasoning, so mix it up and try it. The big thing is you got to learn that too much wood is a bad thing, right? So typical ratios are 5 to 10% of wood to the amount of lump that you have. So when you go beyond that, you start to get too smoky. I'll show you in the basket and we'll show you what that looks like. But just remember, you can cook some food with a little bit of smoke and say, hey, next time I want a little bit more smoke. But if you over smoke, it's going to be terrible and you're going to throw it out. So I encourage you to experiment, but try on the lighter side and then gradually increase it, and you'll just get to enjoy that much more food. The other thing you need to know about smoke is that there is such a thing as clean smoke and dirty smoke. Most people, when they're starting to learn how to smoke, they think you need to see the smoke. Very common. I did it for many years. You can see some smoke, but you want it to have more of a blue tinge. If it's billowing white, the smoke hasn't cleaned up yet, and that's going to put some bitter taste on your food that you really don't want. Now listen, a little bit of dirty smoke from time to time, it's not going to hurt. But if you smoke your entire meal in some dirty smoke, you're just not going to enjoy it. Tip number 2, learn your charcoal. What do I mean by that? Not all lump is created equal. It's important that you use high quality lump. And the reason for that is that high quality lump is denser, lasts longer, and is more stable. Right? If you're going to use a inexpensive brand of lump, chances are it'll ramp up and then it'll ramp back down and you'll need more lump to get you going. Additionally, if you're doing a long smoke, it's a lot harder to control your temperatures. So use a quality lump. My go-to is Fogo. Been using it for years. It's pricey, but it lasts a long time because it's so dense, so you get a lot more use out of it, and it just works great and has a nice mild flavor. Over here I've got Kamado's coffee charcoal. I had the coffee wood before. Coffee lump is made from coffee wood, and it has a nice flavor to it. Very unique. If you combine this with the coffee wood, it is a killer flavor, but you can use them independently. Got to go to Kamado to pick this up. And then I've got the cocoa char. That is lump made out of coconut shells. And why do we want to have lump out of coconut shells? Well, this is an absolute neutral flavor. There's no flavor whatsoever to it, so if you want to have cherry flavored food or mesquite flavored food or hickory, you have only that flavor. When you use other brands of lump, you're going to get a little bit of that flavor. Every lump has its own unique flavor. This guy is nice and mild. On the lower end, you can use like a big block from Kamado Joe. Pretty good lump. You can get that at Lowe's. It's a little heavier on the charcoal taste. And if you looked at something like Jealous Devil is very heavy on charcoal. So when we think about seasoning, we've got whatever we're putting on our product, our meat, and then we've got our wood flavor, and then finally we've got our lump. So you've got to put all these together. You know, when I'm making pizzas and stuff, I don't really want a lot of charcoal flavor, so I use a lot of fogo. It's got a little bit of hint of charcoal flavor in the behind it, but it's not overpowering. So I pretty much use it for everything. Works really, really well. The next thing you need to understand is that it does not take a lot of lump to get one of these going and keep it going. So I'm going to bring you in close when we build a fire, but if I'm going to do a short smoke throughout the day, you're going to need a quarter basket. Don't fill up your basket, because you're going to have a whole bunch of unused charcoal. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but the one thing you need to understand is that new charcoal versus old charcoal, the newer charcoal is going to light easier and it's going to burn a little hotter. So typically you're never going to get it right. You're always going to have some left over. So when I have some older left over, I just mix it in with the new. So don't be afraid to do that. But the one mistake that I made when I was new to a Kamado style grill is I overestimated the amount of lump I needed, and I was always left with a ton. So it's very rare that you need more than a half or 3/4 basket, depending on what you're doing. Number 3 is all about building that fire. Let's bring you in close and show you how to do that. When we're building our fire, this is the first area where a Kamado is going to differ from a Kamado Joe or Big Green Egg. You're used to a round basket. In this one, I've actually got an oval basket. The reason why is that this is the 32-inch version. I'll get into the reason why I went with this version in a little bit, but it's the same principle, right? In this guy, I have a basket splitter. There's my whole basket. Here's my basket splitter. So if I want to use 3/4 of a basket, I can. If I want to use half a basket, I slide that over. Put that plate in place. Now I've got some lump under here, so it's not quite sitting how it should, but you get the point, right? I've got half a basket. There's one more plate that goes in there if I want to use a quarter basket. Same applies for a Big Green Egg or Kamado Joe. If I'm going to do smoke and it's going to be like ribs, right, where you're going to be 3, 4, 5 hours, I'm going to only use a quarter basket. If I'm going to do something where I'm going to do a reverse sear and then I'm going to do some high intense cooking later, I'm probably going to use a half basket. That way I can have enough to be able to smoke my food, but then when I want to turn up the heat and cook over 600, 700, 800 degrees, I've got enough lump left where I can do that. And then if you're going to do pizzas or calzones like I'm going to do today, if you're not subscribed yet, please do so. We're going to do a calzone video next. Then I need my whole basket. Now the one thing to understand is earlier we talked about wood and lump ratios, right? So let's imagine that I'm got this all covered in and I'm only using a quarter basket, right? That one piece might be enough to get me around that 5, 6, 7% of wood versus lump. I could maybe add a baby piece. That might put us to about 12%. We could still get away with it, but I wouldn't do much more than that. Now, if I was going to use a half basket, then maybe I'd add this in. And now we've got all our lump over here and our ratios are on point. Now in a Kamado Joe and Big Green Egg, you've got your round basket. You're going to try and put your wood at the bottom there. The reason for that is that as that wood burns, the smoke comes through the hot lump and burns twice, so you get some really, really clean smoke. Now, you can always add more wood if you need to. Kamado is very smart in that way. Here's my lower rack here. If I had both racks full, right, there's a top rack here, but they open, so I can throw another piece in there if I need to. Now, throwing wood on top of hot lump in the middle of it, you're gonna get some white smoke, which is fine. It will burn up in about 10 minutes. If you're starting with wood on top of it for whatever reason, let it clean up first. But if you just run out of smoke, you're not smelling any smoke whatsoever, and you want to add some more, you can always throw a piece on top. It's not going to be the end of the world. The most important thing here is just remember your wood ratios. Don't overdo it, because if you do, again, you're not going to enjoy your food. Now let's build our fire. As I mentioned, I'm doing a calzone video right after this, so I need my whole basket. When making calzones, I typically don't use any wood. And for this video, I actually emptied out some of my leftover charcoal. I just threw it in a 5-pound bucket. So we're gonna put some of that back in there. And some of this is actually unburnt. Depending on what I'm doing, sometimes I just keep that bucket handy when I wanna mix it up. But what I will do is I will put some fresh stuff right on top. And just a side note here, this is actually a lot of lump, even for pizzas, but because I'm doing filming and I'm going back and forth and I'm doing a bunch of things, typically takes a lot longer to make a few calzones than if you're just doing it for yourself. Over time, you'll learn how much lump you need to use. That just comes with experience. Now, before we get our fire started, we need to talk about cooking types. Now, the reason why I went with a 32-inch Kamado is because even when I'm doing a bunch of steaks, I can run with that half basket blocked off. Hot coals over here, I put in a half rack up here, and now I can have everything indirect heat. And what is indirect heat? Indirect means we're gonna use all the hot air moving around. We're still gonna be touching our surface that's hot. We're gonna get all the effects of the radiant heat from a Kamado style grill, but we're not gonna have direct flame contact. We're not gonna be directly over the flame. So very common today is a reverse sear on a steak. You cook it indirect until it's at your temperature, then you sear it to get that nice crust on the outside, and you get that steak that's got the perfectly medium rare through the whole steak. Now, if you don't have one of these, you would have a round basket and you'd have something like this. So these are the heat deflectors for the Kamado. As you can see, it's been 3 years, I've never used them. I used them once in a video on my gas grill, actually. That's the only time I've ever used them. But on a Kamado style grill like a Big Green Egg or Kamado Joe, you're gonna use these as your friend because they're gonna block off the heat. It's very hard in a round Kamado to get true indirect. Now you can do it by having everything over here, using half a basket, but you still get a little bit of heat over this way. So what you do is you block it. So what I would do is we would just run half of our circular shields and we would do a reverse sear over here, and then we'd go down towards the fire. Same principle, but wanted to show you, if you're gonna do direct, you're right over the fire. Think chicken wings, things you're gonna cook quickly, or any type of searing, trying to get that crispy skin on your chicken. That's when you're gonna cook directly over the fire. So that brings us up to tip number 5. We've got our fire built. We've talked about how we're gonna cook. Now, we gotta get our fire started. Over the years, it's been 6 or 7 years since I've been using Kamado grills. I've tried a lot of different things. For a long time, the only thing I used was Kamado Joe's fire starters. They're wax cubes. These work great. There's a whole bunch of different designs of them. You can use them, but essentially you light them on fire, they burn for a good 10 minutes and you get your fire started. Rule of thumb if you wanna use these, if I'm under 250, I use 1. If I'm over 250, I use 2. If I'm doing something like a pizza, I might use 3 and kind of go across the whole top of it. So I make sure I get, I want an even fire burning so I don't have a hot spot on my pizza stone. The other method is you could use something like this. These guys are from Smokeware. You guys have seen me use my Smokeware 12, 14-inch pan to collect juices. Just helps keep the inside clean. Same company, I'll put a link below. But this guy is a metal ball. You put one of these straw fire starters inside. You lock the ball, maybe, and we throw this inside. Now the benefit of this is that we can throw it in the bottom, we can throw a bunch of lump on it, and we'll start our lump from the bottom, and it's not going to go out. The wax cubes you got to put near the top, and you can angle some lump around them, but you don't want to cover them up. This one you can fully cover up. These methods work great. Either or is great for anyone. Now, the one thing that I ran into is that when you're using these methods, it's going to take you 30-40 minutes to get this guy at the temperature properly. So I started looking for faster ways. I've tried a couple different ways. What I ended up going with, and I'll be honest, this was not the way that I was initially going to go. I wanted to try something else. I didn't want to have to deal with propane, but I'm dealing with it anyhow, and there's a reason for it. This thing is amazing. This is the grill gun. This is going to get your fire started in 60 seconds. Works great, but this, turn it on, away we go. I mean, who doesn't like to play with fire? So if you're looking for a quick way to start your fire, I've actually got a 10% discount code for this below. Check that out. But either one of these methods will work. All depends what you're comfortable with and really how quick you want to get your fire started. Let me bring you in here and we'll fire this guy up. Now, the one thing I'll say about using a grill gun, in the winter months, do not light a whole bunch of coal. Maybe use this for 30 seconds and let it come up to temperature a little slower, because if you bring up a Kamado style grill too fast, you can crack it. So be careful of that. The Kamado, luckily it just expands and you've got to reapply some grout, but on the other ones you will crack it. Number 6. Now this is really going to vary depending on your Kamado. So I can't give you settings that I've learned on the Kamado that are going to apply to the other products out there. However, the most important tip I can give you when it comes to stabilizing your temperatures is a little goes a long way, right? How do these guys work? We've got air coming in the bottom, we've got air coming out the top. The more air we let through this, the hotter it gets. It's real simple. And honestly, it's going to take you probably 10 or 15 cooks, and then you're going to have a really good idea of where your vent settings are. Keep a logbook and you'll learn over time, but it's really simple once you figure it out. But essentially, what you want to do is you want to increase the airflow to adjust your temperatures and dial them in. Now, the one thing I'll tell you is do not overshoot your temperatures. If you do and you bring it down right away before this is heat soaked, no problem. But if this guy gets heat soaked and you try to bring it down, good luck. So the big thing there is that bring it up slowly, get your temperatures locked in, and away you go. So what you're gonna do is limit your bottom airflow. James Smoking Dad Barbecue has got a great tip on his channel, and lots of great videos on Kamado Joe, but one finger is what he uses on his bottom vent all the time, unless he's doing something like pizza and getting a little hotter. But that's a great tip, because what happens there is that you're eliminating one variable. Don't sit there and play with the bottom. On a Kamado, I typically use the right vent, and I'll use the biggest hole or the second biggest hole, and then the rest of it's all done here. Now in my case, right, this thing turns 360 degrees and comes up, right? So I'm looking at 1/8 of a turn is really where I'm at. So I know that an 1/8 of a turn, sometimes if I'm looking for just 5 degrees, a 1/16 of a turn is gonna allow that to make the change I need. The big thing is make a change and wait. Wait a good 10 minutes. If you only wait 3 or 4 or 5 and you think you got it, you walk away, you might have over adjusted and your temperature might run away on you a little bit more than you want. So take your time, just make small adjustments. That'll help you get it locked in. And once you learn kind of what works, right? You've got a line or you've got the dial up top there. You're gonna learn that, you know, 1/4 of an inch on the top and 1 finger on the bottom is 250 degrees, right? Maybe 1/2 an inch is, 270 degrees. You'll learn that over time. Just play with it and experiment and keep some notes. And after a summer of using it, you'll be a pro. Number 7, monitoring your temperature. Now, first off, I don't care what you're cooking on, get yourself a good thermometer. You guys have seen me use my Thermopen many a times. Look at any barbecue channel out there, they're all using Thermopens. They are great because they are super accurate and they allow you to probe your meat so you can get an idea how tender it is. The next piece of that is monitoring the temperatures inside your Kamado. Now, obviously they all have a dome temp, which is great, but it's not actually accurate when you're looking at a long smoke, and that grate level is going to be completely different. This is good for pizzas, or if you're just grilling up some wings or some burgers or something like that, you don't necessarily have to worry about it as much. But typically, I always cook a grate level temperature. So I have Thermoworks Smoke X4 here. I had a 2, now I have a 4. I love it because I can have a pit level, and then I can have 3 other probes in it. And this version, this remote works a long ways away. I can go over with my neighbor, have a beer in his garage, and still monitor my food. So I do like it that way. But what I do is we've got this little clamp here. See if that focuses on it. But really what we got here, we got a little clamp. Now this is warming up for my calzone, so I don't want to burn my hand off, but essentially what happens is it just sits in here and we monitor grate level. So that way, if my target temperature is 250, I'm cooking at 250. I set this guy up with an alarm for 260. The great thing about a Kamado style grill is you can get it locked in, and when it's really dialed in, you're cooking at 250 or whatever, and it'll go 250, 251, 250, 251, and it'll hover right around that mark when you get it really dialed in. So they really do hold their temperatures well once you learn them, and if you're using good quality lump. So I'll have a link below to Thermoworks. Love my Thermoworks products. This is my second one. I had the 2-channel version first. Works great. You can use this in your oven as well. When my wife's cooking chicken or pork inside or whatever, some pork chops in the oven, she uses that and she can monitor the temps. So it's multi-use. The Thermopan, again, can't stress enough. You want to get one of them. I've been using one for 12 years. I'm on my second one. Listen, you can go like this or whatever the different hand things are to check the doneness of your steak, or you can get yourself a thermometer and be 100% accurate. My last and final tip, this is something we all have to do. At the end of the night when we're done cooking, we've got to shut these guys down. It's simple. I told you before, more air, more heat, less air, no heat. So all we do is we close up all our vents. So we're going to lock this down, right? We're going to close our bottom vents, and we just let it cool down. Now typically, once it comes down about 50 degrees, our fire is out. So then you can put your cover on, as long as you're not cooking at like 700 degrees or 600 degrees. Let it cool down. Now the one little caveat here that's unique to the Kamado is that on this guy we've got 2 levels of locking, right? So when I close this, I've got play in here right now. This is not sealed properly. This is called storage mode. So what this does is this takes a little bit of the pressure off the gasket. I'm hot, so I'm going to close it all the way. But what it does is it helps the gasket not be crunched all the time. The other thing is, once it's cooled down, is just give it a crack, right? Let some air flow through it, put your cover on, and you're done. It's easy. On the other brands out there, you could give a little crack. It's not going to hurt it. Just going to help make sure that gasket lasts a little bit longer. The one thing to remember though, you've got to wait till the fire's out and it's cooled down, because if you add more air and it's not completely out, she'll just start back up, and 10 hours later, it'll still be hot and you'll be going, what the heck's going on? So make sure that you are 100% positive that your fire is out before you do any of that. Again, for me, once this dome comes down about 50, 75 degrees, I know my fire is out. It'll take some time, but it will eventually come down. If your fire is not going out and your temperatures are not coming down for a very, very long time, you don't have something closed. There's air getting into your unit. So figure out what's going on there. Maybe your gasket's worn down and it's time for a new gasket. But you should be able to close up your dials, have the lid all the way closed, and you should be able to shut your fire down. That's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you got some value out of this. If you did, hit that like button below. While you're down there, subscribe so you can see future videos. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see you soon.